What is the smallest lie you've ever told which had the biggest consequences? Once when I was around 6 or 7, my mom brought home some delicious chocolate and gave some to me. I loved the stuff and stole the bar that she had saved for my stepdad. He comes home and my mom can't find the chocolate. She asks me what happened to it. I blame the Duncan, our dog, knowing that he often eats things off the counter. I didn't know at the time that chocolate was toxic for dogs. My mom goes terribly pale and rushes Duncan to the vet, and he has to throw up. I felt terrible about this, as I thought it was because he stole the chocolate, and was some form of punishment. The next day she brings home more chocolate. Nobody told me that it was for Duncan's own good that he was taken to the vet. So feeling bad for doing this to Duncan, I give him my chocolate this time, thinking he deserved it after taking one for the team last time. Later that night, my mom asks me how the chocolate was. This time I decided to tell the full truth and explained that I gave the chocolate to Duncan this time as I felt bad for getting him in trouble the first time. So another late night trip to the vet, and I finally was told that chocolate is toxic for dogs. Duncan was fine in the end, and for the rest of his life I snuck him meat and other things that would not kill him. Now the twist is that the very expensive vet strips cost a lot of money, which prompted my mom to take a look at our expenses. She found that the then stepdad was hiding an affair, and then got a divorce. TLDR, I lied about our dog almost dying, then almost killed him on accident, causing my mom to get divorced. My first year walking to school alone was the 7th grade, and I was late a lot. It got to the point that the teacher told me I would have to do all the day's chores, putting chairs down in the morning, wiping boards clean, cleaning after lunch, etc. if I was late again. Well, the next day I was running late as usual. Being a lazy sob, I knew I had to do something to get out of doing the daily chores. So when the teacher asked me why I was late, I thought back on the assembly we had a few weeks prior on school safety. So I told the teacher that a strange man pulled up to me when I was coming into school grounds and asked me to come with him to see some puppies. I honestly thought that would be a good enough excuse, and it would be the end of it. Ducking? Nope. School was suspended for the rest of the day, police were called, my parents were called in, and I was interviewed for the entire day. Had to describe the man, the car, everything. They ended up hiring a security officer for the grounds because of that incident, and put in a few new cameras. We had monthly school assemblies because of it too. And it was all for nothing. Because less than a week later I was late again and had to do all the daily chores. I walked in on my friend finishing a conversation on her phone. She looked at me, petrified, and asked if I heard everything. I told her with a defeated face, yes. She starts crying and leans on me, telling me she is so afraid and doesn't know what to do. I did this in Italy as a joke, but obviously I'm in deep water now, so I just tell her everything will be fine, and to call me whenever she needed me. Turns out she got pregnant and asked me to go to an abortion clinic with her. Her boyfriend scrammed. We are best of friends now. I've told this story before, but during my undergrad I took a number of business courses. During one of these courses we were learning about a small company that produced high-end jam. The professor asked the class what we thought of high-end jam as a business. I said that it was a stupid idea. Why would I pay $20 for a bottle of jam when I could make it myself? I meant that as a rhetorical question, but apparently my professor took me literally. When I was packing up at the end of class, the professor came over to me and started asking me all sorts of questions about jam making. So I rolled with it. I lied and told him how my grandmother taught me how to make jam, when the right time to pick the berries was to ensure optimal jam, etc. I don't know how to make jam. I had no idea what I was saying, but the professor bought it. We became buds. After every class we would chat, mostly about jam. He wrote my reference letter to get into my competitive undergrad program, and again when I applied for my master's. I owe most of my academic career to jam. In college, the girls in the apartment downstairs asked my roommate and I if we'd like to join them at a concert a month away. Neither of us wanted to, and my quick thinking roommate said that date is my birthday. It wasn't, and we have other plans. They ended up not going to the concert, and we had forgotten about it, but on that date they called me downstairs to help them move something. I walked in the door, and, surprise, a birthday party for me with about 15 people there. My roommate was just as surprised. I couldn't tell them the truth and just went with it. Even got a couple small gifts. I always felt guilty about it. I was at a job fair against my will. Was trying to steal a pen so I could retire to a dark corner and doodle while everyone else did their thing. The lady caught me taking a pen, and I had to act interested in her sales pitch. Then a news reporter showed up. Before I knew it, I was in national papers as a general human interest story, as a turnaround miracle story of how I'd come all the way from the barren plains of another country far away while kicking mental illness and addiction, and now wanted to become a nurse. I don't, nor have I ever, wanted to be a nurse, but that interview sure snowballed all out of proportion. All I wanted was a free pen. It's been 10 years, and people are still asking how the nursing career is going. My girlfriend and I used to buy milk at the 7-Eleven across the street from our apartment, because for whatever reason their gallons of 1% were always $1 cheaper than the grocery store. Reza, the young Middle Eastern guy who managed the store, got to know us fairly well, in that we would always greet each other, and occasionally if he saw their stocks of 1% gallons running low he would store one in the back for us, because he knew we would always come in at like 2 PM every Sunday for milk. Really nice guy. The week before we took a vacation, the girlfriend was studying her ass off for her exam, so I did the grocery shopping alone. Because we were leaving midweek for our trip, I only bought a half gallon of milk. Of ducking course, Razor assumes the worst. He assumes that we're broken up. He asked where she was, and I just kind of grumbled, ready to launch into explaining how her test was tomorrow and whatnot. But before I could, he just launched into this whole big apology, like he didn't realize, and how he just got divorced and how he misses her every day. I just didn't have the heart to tell him that she was just busy today, and that we were leaving for the week, so I just went with it. I didn't want my girlfriend to think I was a shitbird, so I neglected to tell her when I got home. 2 weeks later, coincidentally the girlfriend is busy working a weekend shift to make up for our week off. I go back in, grab a gallon of 1%, and quickly realize that luck's bad, so I turn around, put the gallon back, and grab the half gallon. The whole time Razor is watching me, dejectedly. He starts telling me it gets better, hang in there, we can grab coffee if I want to talk. I politely decline, and quickly realize this lie is going to spiral out of control real fast. I think I told the girlfriend that they were out of gallons, and Razor didn't save us one this week. In the ensuing weeks, I proceeded to make all efforts to buy milk when the girlfriend wasn't around. She still didn't know. I decided to start working out, so I was able to justify to Razor the purchase of a gallon of 1%. We would normally chat for a few minutes, and we would ask each other how things were, and we would both give vague answers and wish each other well and be on our way. Eventually, one day the girlfriend goes to 7-Eleven on her own when I wasn't around. I guess Razor helped her, made small talk, but was definitely weird towards her. She texts me about it, and at this point I knew the gig was up, and I had to come clean. When I get home I explain everything to her, and she laughs, calls me an idiot, but at the same time thought it was cute for me to keep up the facade and commiserate with Razor, who was clearly dealing with some of his own issues. She decided that we needed to stage a reunion. So the following Sunday, we waltzed in, arm in arm, looking cheery. We could feel his eyes following us around the room. I made eye contact with him once or twice. He was trying desperately, and failing to hold back the biggest knowing grin I've ever seen. Finally we go to check out, and he starts wringing his hands, and finally bursts out about he was rooting for us, and how happy he was that we worked it out. The look of excitement and happiness on Razor's face was probably one of the most uplifting moments I've ever had. He told us repeatedly how we give him hope, and how not the whole world is evil. Holy crap. Glad we could help you, Razor. Sorry I lied about the milk. When I was about 13, I called a little boy ugly. At the time, my mom's best friend was driving me home from school. Of course she told my mother what I said, and my mom asked me to not say things like that. I told her I didn't call anyone ugly. It was a little lie. At first I didn't know what she was talking about, and it became this big whole ordeal about my kid would never lie to me, and why would I lie about this? They were best friends, and they no longer speak because of this. All three of us were dumb and immature. I hate it when parents think their kids are saints. I would totally believe my long-term friend telling me my kid did something like that over my kid saying they didn't. When I was little, maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I was playing with my cousin. He was my best friend, even if we have grown apart in the last few years. Anyway, I told him if he jumps out of the tree onto the trampoline, he can get into the club. He jumped and jarred his knee. He screamed blue murder. There was no club. There was no entry test. The injury plays up till this day. It affected him when he was playing gridiron. He had to give it up. It affected him when he joined the army, and again when he became a cop. I'm worried one day he dies because of that knee and I'll blame myself for it. Once when I was really young, maybe 6 or 7, my family was out for pizza, and I told them when I was off alone that a man had asked me to come out to his van for candy. I have no idea why I did it. I'm sure I was just parroting something I heard in one of those stranger danger videos, but I threw it out there, thinking people would be impressed I said no or something. Well, all of a sudden there are police everywhere. The whole pizza place is basically evacuated. The police are grilling me about what he looked like, and I'm making up a description on the spot, something like blonde hair, green plaid shirt, etc. Well, a few minutes later the police come out with a guy who looks exactly like the description I gave, and I quickly told them that it wasn't him. Thank God I didn't ruin that poor man's life. After all that, I thought it was done, but I got so many cards, and balloons and toys from relatives, family friends, teachers. There was a write-up in the local newspaper, etc. It blew up into this huge deal. For a really long time I never told anyone, and for some reason a few years ago, in my late teens, early 20s, I remembered this incident and felt super guilty about it, so I called my mom out of the blue to explain that I made it all up. I'll still never forget her reaction. That's a weird thing to lie about. When my sister and I were kids, I told her the Easter bunny came through the drain. I thought it was cute, and since Santa came through the chimney I couldn't think of any other routes into the house. She cried for hours. Easter became the most miserable holiday for years, until we grew up and she realized what an idiot I am. When I was younger at a birthday party, a girl asked me for a quarter to call home for her dad to come get her. I told her that I didn't have one, and she got a ride home from another parent. Later, I heard that when she got home, she found ambulances around her house because her father had died falling out of a tree doing yard work. I kept imagining that if I had given her the quarter, her dad would have come to get her instead of continuing yard work. If I had given her a quarter, maybe she would still have a father. Once when I was a kid, I invited a kid that I bullied horribly over to my house for a sleepover, because I was told I had to do something nice for someone I hurt by our priest during confession. I went to a Catholic school. The next day after a pretty boring night, we were playing in the snowbanks, and I lied telling him my foot was stuck and I couldn't get it out. He ran well over a mile back to my house to get my mom to save me. Well, that kind of woke me up and made me realize, this kid isn't that bad. After that day I never bullied anyone again, and 20 years later, that turd that I bullied so terribly is still my best friend, was the best man at my wedding, and the godfather of my first child. My friends and I accidentally got a kid suspended. We finished the last class of our day before lunch on a Friday, and we were feeling pretty good, so we picked up a handful of rocks and tried to see who could throw them the furthest. Turns out one hit our teacher. She brought us into the office and made us tell the vice principal our story. Since she wasn't in the room, we lied through our teeth and made up a description of a kid we'd never seen before. A week later, the guidance teacher approaches us and tells us she's glad we didn't take the blame for the kid who threw rocks, because the principal found out who it was, and he's be getting a 3-day suspension from school.